Rants. Like and subscribe. And I see we going back to Cabrini. We going back to Cabrini Green. Chi-Town. That's fine. I got a pass there. Allegedly. So we can get to it. I mean, hopefully you guys are already familiar with this one, right? This is and for the record, this is a random episode rant. This is season 4, episode 4. Michael the Warlord. Yeah, this is a classic right here. This is a classic. And it's Randumb Rants. I guess I'll touch on a quick history on the Warlords. I can't say too much because that stuff is real over there in Chicago. But in the Mad Dog video, I touched on the Satan Knights. You guys are already familiar. That's a gang in Cabrini Green. And you guys are familiar with the show, right? You already know their rivals have always been the Warlords. In the JJ episode, Mad Dog was pressing JJ. Was like, yeah, we need you to come because we got into it with the Warlords last time and we lost a lot of our people. So the Warlords have always had a presence. Always had a presence. And, I mean, I'm not about to get into their leader, King William, and all that. That's something you probably can go to Trap Lore for. I'm not doing all that. I will say this, though. These gangs in Chicago, right? The Satan Knights, the Junior Warlords that I speak on. The ones that I speak on. Y'all got to read between the lines now. They have, junior gangs and whatnot, right? It's you got to graduate. It's different things and, different work that you got to do. To move up in the brackets, basically, right? When it really comes down to this Satan Knight and Warlord beef, because it's still going on to this day. It's still going on to this day. But when it really, comes down to it, the Warlords have always been a little bit more prevalent. They've always beat the Satan Knights. And I hate to say that. I apologize to the ones that I know. I shouldn't even be speaking on it. And their junior sets, especially when let's talk back then. We're talking back then, right? These junior gangs coming up, in the 70s when Mike is coming up, they're serious. It's just as serious as it is today. Don't let it fool, please, I get it, we don't see it, right? But it was serious. Mike really had to, in this show, y'all gonna see, let's get to it. Let's just get to it. The show starts off, he's running into the house. And you're like, what's going on? Why is he out of breath? He turns around, he has that Junior Warlord jacket on, and you like, oh wow, little Mike's a stepper. But see, I know Mike. I know the Evans family. And y'all, I guess y'all do too. Y'all seen the show? Y'all grew up with him, some of y'all. Some of us grew up watching the reruns. But you gotta understand, Mike just witnessed some trauma. And he, on the low, he's running home from somewhere that we're going to get to. We're going to get to that. Right? But he's like, oh, I got to hide this jacket. Oh, my mother and Wallona's coming up the stairs. The whole time, they just came back from the grocery store. They just caught the bus. You see them walking up the stairs. You dodged them. So you can hide your jacket. In the oven. He goes, hides it in the oven, right? Mike opens the door for his mother and Wallona. She like, dude, I know you seen us carrying these bags. We just caught the bus down here and had to walk. Like, I could have swore you just ran right past us. And you had the chain on the door? Can you please get the bags? Can you put the groceries away? She tired. Mike like, all right, what's going on? Walona like, look, I'm about to step. You know, I'll bring back the punch bowl and whatnot. Mike like, what's going on? What's up with the punch bowl? What's going on? Florida like, like, Mike, we chilling. We gonna have a little parent meeting, right? The phone rings. Mike rushing to the phone. Hello? Oh, she's not here. We find out that it's one of Thelma's flings, right? She's in college. We gonna get on that real quick too, because they touch on that in this episode. But let's stay on topic. Right? One of Thelma's flings calls, and Mike's like, okay, hangs up the phone and whatnot, right? Then JJ walks in. And, you know, he's coming in from a long day of work. You know, he's the man of the house now, right? This is season 4. Their father's already, you know, transitioned. And he's like, man, you know, I had a rough day today. Florida's like, what happened, baby? Oh, Lord. JJ like, Ma, can you chill out with that? But anyway, I was making a delivery, you know, and the Junior Satan Knights, they took 15 boxes of spare ribs, and they also took a spare tire from me. And like, these junior gangs out here is just serious. Florida's like, they're uncontrollable, Lord. You know, Florida, that's what she do, right? And while they saying this, Mike is like in the background annoyed, you know, because he's a part of this, you know. So he like, oh, don't bring me up. But JJ like, but Ma, I ain't even gonna lie. Them junior warlords, if they taking ribs, they digging in your chest and taking your ribs. And Florida like, oh, these kids are not civilized, Lord. Mike on super alert. He annoyed. The phone ring again. Right? And before the phone even rang, I forgot. He drops off a pizza, right? He like, you know, I bought a pizza from work. A barbecue beet pizza. I don't know who wants this. Florida accepts it. They're in the projects, right? They're hungry. And the phone rings, right? JJ gets to the phone. You know, Mike's trying to answer the phone. He's rushing to the phone. Florida's like, what's up with this dude? You know, JJ gets to it. It's like Casanova of the ghetto speaking. You know, like he does his little spiel. You know, he's a smooth dude. JJ always got him, right? But what JJ didn't know was it was another dude calling for Thelma. And it was like, come on now. The show's only been on for about 5 minutes and Thelma already got 2 phone calls. Right after that, Thelma hops in the scene, right? And JJ like, come on, what's up with you getting all these phone calls? Seriously. And we about to name the dudes. We gonna touch on this and we just gonna get it out the way, right? JJ like, you got a call from Don, Bob, Bill, Terry, and Jerry. Her mother popped up and was like, yeah, and you got a call from Harold, Johnny, and Maurice. And she just like, well, you know, I'm in college. You know, because Thelma is we going to eventually touch on Thelma. We will talk about the many men of Thelma past. It's going to be a long episode. That's probably going to be 45 minutes within itself, right? But nonetheless, though, Thelma's like, you know, I got homework. I don't got time for this, right? And they get a knock at the door, and Mike's rushing to the door. He's so annoyed. We don't know why. We just know he hid his gang jacket in the oven, and he's super annoyed, right? And we find out it's the parents for the meeting that Florida was supposed to be holding. It's Mr. Parker and Clara, right? And they sit down, and of course, Claire and Florida, they get the gossiping. But Mr. Parker's serious. He's like, look here. I'm trying to talk some business now, right? It's a gang problem with these teenagers in Cabrini Green, okay? I didn't come to gossip about who cooks the best collard greens on the 5th floor. We're not doing that. No. These junior warlords are serious. And, of course, Florida, what do you think we should do? And Mr. Parker's like, he puts some peanuts on a table and crushes them with a book. He's like, yeah, we need to do something about them. Get them one by one and just start spanking them. And Florida is like, no, I don't think, that's necessary. See, Mr. Parker doesn't understand where he's at. He should feel the way he feels, but you're in a room full of women, and you're being very aggressive. Like, what makes you think, you about to start a war with a bunch of teenagers and it's you and like a bunch of women though, but he doesn't understand. He's frustrated, right? He's in the projects. So Florida and Clara, they like, let's wait for Nettie to get here. We just want to wait for everybody to get here. Mr. Parker's like, I can't wait. They out here vandalizing property. They threatening teachers. They beating up students. Like, we got to do something about this, Nettie finally walks in, right? And she's like, yeah, did you guys hear? Tommy got beat up by the junior warlords today. His mother, Brenda, is supposed to keep me posted. And now Michael is on super alert. As if he knows something about this. Florida, of course, oh, Lord. Michael, do you know anything about this? He's like, no, Mama. I don't know anything about that. And she's like, Dad, that's his best friend. Tommy's his best friend. He usually would know, but nonetheless, I hope he all right. So Mr. Parker hear this and he like, see, this is what I'm talking about. This is what I'm talking about. Like, we need to catch one of them, like just each of them, one by one, and beat them with a baseball bat. He's talking that wild stuff. Old school Chicago dude. And if you look at his face, he looked like he eats a lot of pork. Like his cheeks. He just screamed like he probably just had a pork chop sandwich. So he upset. Nonetheless, right? He's telling them like, yeah, I got 2 daughters that go to Cooley High. That's the school. Like, man, I ain't trying to have nothing happen to them. Clara, rude. Oh, I seen your daughters. Dang, you don't got to worry about nothing, Mr. Parker. And I'm like, come on. Like, it's 2 little girls, sweetie. You clearly don't have no kids. Like, but you do though, right? Clearly, but it's like, because you at this parent meeting. Like, how dare you talk about somebody's little girls like that? Rude. I guess in the 70s, they just didn't care. Seriously, they probably didn't care. It wasn't like rules like that. Like, yeah, neighbors were closer, but at the same time, we would call your child ugly though. We wouldn't care about that. Nonetheless though, let's get back on subject, let's get back on topic. So the phone ring, right? And of course Mike can't get to it because Florida already there. And Florida answers, and it's Brenda. And Brenda asks to speak to Nettie, and I'm like, that's weird. You called my phone. Like, how did you know she was going to be here? Like, you calling my phone to speak to someone else? This is my house phone. How did you know that? But nonetheless, though, she like, yeah, Nettie, Tommy's skull was fractured. So Nettie tell everybody. And if I'm Florida, I'm thinking like, why didn't you just tell me that? I was just on the phone with you. But Florida's, baby, Lord, she don't, let me just get back because I don't even want to get started on her. Nonetheless, right? Mr. Parker hears that and was like, look, this boy's skull just got fractured. The junior warlords hang out in the boarded building right across the street. We really need to set up something. Now, mind you, it's just him and a bunch of women. So I don't know why he has this aggression, right? And Florida's like, we're not vigilantes. Lord, how dare you? At the end of the day, If the parents control their kids, Lord, there would be no gangs. That's why I control my son. You see, he's a little feminine, but he's not a gang member. And Mr. Parker's like, you right. I know Mike little feminine self. He wouldn't touch it. He wouldn't hurt a flea. You right. You right. Maybe I'm a little aggressive, you know. Walona walks in with the punch bowl. So now Florida like, all right, Mike, go get the lemons and ginger ale for the punch and the sugar, right? We gonna make the punch. JJ, you put the pizza in the oven. And Mike's like, no, I'll put the pizza in the oven. Florida's like, ho, like I just told JJ to do it. Chill out. JJ preheats the oven, right? Mike, he's stuck. Florida's like, Mike, go get the lemons and the ginger ale. I just told you that. What's up? He's stuck because he knows what's in the oven, right? He just runs in the back room like a little, like just runs from it, you know. You know, maybe he's upset his best friend got beat up. But I'll get the lemons and ginger ale for you. And while he's getting the lemons and ginger ale, he noticed a wild smell. He's like, what's that smell? Something coming from the oven? Him in Florida like, whoa. Oh, it's a fire. And of course, the jacket catches on fire. JJ pulls it out. He's like, oh, I found out what it is. Puts it in the water. And it's revealed. A Junior Warlords jacket. Of course, JJ, he's like, I'm not a junior. So it ain't mine. Thelma like, you know, I'm a woman. You know, I'm the Cabrini Green queen. It clearly ain't mine. So, naturally, Florida calls Michael out, right? And Michael has this stupid look on his face when she's like, what's this, Lord? What's this? And Mike finally admits it's his. And when Mr. Parker hears that, he's like, oh, wow. Oh, wow. See, you was judging me, you know, for my plan, but you and your little teeny afro, you and your little feminine son over here breaking jaws. You know, that's what y'all do. You got a little gang member in your house. I'm getting up out of here. This meeting's over. Florida, you a hypocrite. And he walks out. Meeting's gone. Florida's embarrassed. She's looking stupid. Mike's embarrassed her. Everybody leaves out. Florida presses him. Mike, what's going on with the jacket? Mike's like, I'm tough. Florida's like, no, you're not. He's like, I'm tough, Mom. And like JJ's like, really? Like, Mike, you know, like, we don't believe you. You know, it's Mike. Mike was always been a militant, thought for himself, you know, head on his shoulders. So for Mike to just do this out the blue, it's like, come on now, you know. And Florida's like, seriously, like I'm really trying to know, like, really. Thelma even asked him, like, Mike, seriously, I always thought you were smarter than this. He's like, well, it's not really a gang, it's a social club. JJ's like, it's a gang, Mike. Stop. We're not stupid. Like, how do you think we are? They going back and forth. The Florida finally, like, the mother finally, like, look, Lord, why did you join the gang? Like, what's going on? You know, and Michael finally like, look, I ain't even gonna lie to you, Ma. They asked this dude Felix Smith to join, and when he said no, they broke his jaw. They asked Ernest Williams to join, and when he said no, the Warlords broke his arm. See, so when they asked me, they was looking at my neck, and I was like, nah, I'm cool. I'ma join. I'm cool. So you right, Ma. I'm a scared punk. I'm a punk. And then he, you know, runs in the room because he's little feminine Mike. You know, he sings, when you're young and in love. Y'all remember that? That's what he do. Y'all know this is not Mike, right? Clearly, right? So the truth finally comes out. And JJ is like, all right, you know, this little punk boy, I'm going to talk to him. You know, I'm the man of the house. Let me go back there. I'm going to talk to him, Ma. And he goes back there. And he's like, Mike, you know, Dad not here, so I got to come back here and do, you know, like a father would do. And Mike is like, boy, if you come back here and try to whoop me, I'll bust your lip, JJ. And JJ's like, really? Because you just said you was a punk and that's why you joined this gang. You know? What happened with Tommy? Because you real tough. What happened with Tommy? Because you hid your gang. What happened with Tommy, your best friend? JJ, if you really want to know the truth, I was swinging at the air and Tommy went down. I didn't even hit him. Tommy went down and I just ran. Now imagine that from Tommy's perspective. Because Tommy is Mike's best friend. The last thing before Tommy blacks out that he probably remembers, and I actually asked Tommy this. Tommy's an old man now. Like, it's not no probably. This is a fact. He was like, yeah, man, I got jumped. That's a fact. And the last thing I remembered was Mike swinging on me, man. All the other dudes, Ragbone and all them, like, I kind of knew where it was coming from, but, like, it hurt me when Mike swung on me, you know, because I found out that he was a follower, and for real, Tommy knows some secrets about Mike, too, because they best friends, and Mike a little, you know, when you're young and in love. We gonna just leave it at that, man. And Tommy a real dude, because if they was coming up now, Mike would have got exposed, and that's all I'm gonna say. We gonna leave it at that. But nonetheless, JJ's like, look, I'm gonna go to the hospital and see Tommy for you. And he's lying to Mike. He's not, because Tommy's skull is fractured. Like, Mike, you just witnessed that. Of course, you was traumatized and you ran, but that happened. You know? And he's in a coma. JJ's not going to go see that little boy, but he told Mike he was. And he walks out, tells his mother, he's like, yeah, Mike is cool. Mike cool. He got his head on his shoulders now. I think we handled it. You know? And you got to remember, JJ had already dealt with Mad Dog. He had gotten shot. So Mike was familiar with that, you know? And Mike steps out the room and, like, with a change of heart. He's like, yeah, Ma, Walona, Thelma, JJ, I'm leaving. I'm about to go throw this Warlords jacket in the trash heap. But he grabs his jacket and Thelma notices it. And she tells the mother, she's like, yeah, you think he really went to go throw the jacket away? Because if I know Mike, he probably went to the Warlords to go tell them where they could stick that jacket. And Florida's like, oh no, I'm going down there. And Walona and Thelma's like, let us go with you. But they don't really go. Like, y'all could have chased her. She's not a track star. Y'all was scared. But it's all good. She going down there to save her son, right? And in the next scene, this is when you guys are introduced to the Junior Warlords. You see them taking a purse. They didn't get much. I think 7 cents. But you see Ragbone. You see Earl. You see the gang. You see my man with the red shirt. He's a tough guy. Very tough. And Mike walks in. And they're like, oh, Fleetfoot Evans. You ran from us earlier. So what's going on, man? I mean, you're supposed to be down. He's like, I didn't run. I just left early. Oh, you left early. My man with the red shirt, like, I don't think he left early. I think Mike is a chump. And he trying to, like, you know, see him, but Ragbone, like, he's one of us. We don't have to hurt him. And they like, what's up with you, Mike? You know, like, what's up with you? Mike, like, look, I went out of this Warlord gang, man. I can't do it, man. And they like, what? You went out? What, you don't like us no more? Like, what's going on? And my man with the red, like, I hope he don't like me. Like, he really got something against Mike. Slim right here, he got something against Mike. And Mike like, look, I got dreams, y'all. I know y'all steppers. My man with the red, he's destined to catch a body. but I got dreams. And they like, well, we got dreams too. But our dreams consist of homicide, robberies, felony crimes, you know. And I'm going to be honest, we thinking about beating on you. We thinking about doing what we did to Tommy to you. And my man in the red was like, yeah, just admit to it. Like, yeah, I beat his skull in. So imagine what we going to do to you. But they hear a knock on their headquarters door. And it's Florida Evans. And the Warlords talking that good jive. Hey, little fro fox. What you want? She's like, my son, Lord. We're going home. And they like, I doubt it. Mike, I doubt you can leave right now. Tell your mother you can't leave right now. She's like, come on, Michael. And you see they got Mike in a tough situation. They got him, right? And one person, like, even, like, touches his mother. And it's like, whoa, you know, you a little tough. You know, that's crazy. Florida, like, get your hands off of me, Lord. Jesus. And Mike, like, hey, like, for real, this is between me and y'all. Don't be talking to my mother like that. Chill out, you know, with my mother. Like, she just came here, you know, she shouldn't even be here, granted. But, like, leave that alone, you know. They like, oh, your mother got a wedding ring? You know how many purses we gotta take to get one of those? That's worth about at least like $300, you know. And they like, Mike like, oh, that's the ring my father gave her. You know, y'all already hip, y'all know me since elementary. Y'all know what happened to my father. They like, yeah, well, we want the ring. What's up? Mike like, Slim, really? And Mike breaks away from the gang and gets into a fight with Ragbone, right? And he's giving it to Ragbone. And the gang was about to jump in. Florida pulls out a bat. And they look, they at ease. They at ease, hands up. And Mike crushing Ragbone. Crushing him. I couldn't even believe it. Crushing Ragbone. Putting them little feminine hands on Ragbone. Hands all over his neck. He like, am I out the gang now? Am I out, Ragbone? Earl them sitting there like, we look. Ragbone like, yeah, you out. He get up. And his mother like, come on, sweetie. We're going home, Lord. But what y'all think really happened after that, though? Seriously, let's talk about it because it's protocol, man. That man agreed to join something. And I already know what happened. Like that next week at school, every day he had to fight a different member of the Junior Warlords. I ain't saying he beat all of them. He definitely beat Ragbone again. I ain't saying he beat all of them, but he definitely got his respect and he was able to get out, you know. As far as, you know, Ragbone, all of them, you know, I mean, the streets, they swallow up a lot of people, you know, like, I can't really keep up with all of them. I do remember they said Ragbone, he did like 30 in jail. I think he did 30 and then like, you know, I believe he passed from like cancer. And I don't even know, like the rest of the, like Earl, like the rest of the other gang members, they didn't even have names in the show. So they're irrelevant. Like and subscribe though. Randumb Rants.